When a single mother's world was falling apart, her daughter's nightmare became the key to finding the family they never knew they needed. Lisa thought she had everything figured out. After years of trying to make her marriage work, she finally made the hardest decision of her life. She packed her bags, took her 8-year-old daughter Maya, and moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment across town. The place wasn't much to look at, but it was theirs. For the first time in years, Lisa felt like she could breathe freely. The apartment had cream-colored walls that needed a fresh coat of paint and windows that let in just enough sunlight to make the living room feel warm during the day. Maya's new bedroom was smaller than her old one, but Lisa had worked hard to make it special. They painted one wall bright purple, Maya's favorite color, and hung up all her drawings and certificates from school. The little girl seemed excited about their new adventure, at least during the daytime. Lisa had found a job at a local bookstore that paid enough to cover their basic needs. The owner, Mrs. Chen, was kind and understanding about Lisa needing flexible hours to pick Maya up from school. Everything seemed to be falling into place perfectly. Lisa would wake up each morning feeling proud of herself for taking control of their lives and giving Maya a fresh start. But then the sun would set, and everything would change. The first few nights in the new apartment, Maya had trouble falling asleep. She would call out for her mother every few minutes, asking for water or complaining that the room felt different. Lisa understood this was normal. Moving to a new place was a big change for anyone, especially a child. She would sit with Maya, read her extra bedtime stories, and sing the lullabies that used to work like magic. By the end of the first week, things got worse. Maya started having bad dreams that would wake her up crying in the middle of the night. She would run to Lisa's room, tears streaming down her face, talking about scary shadows on the walls and strange sounds in the hallway. Lisa would hold her daughter tight, promising her that everything was safe, that they were going to be okay in their new home. The nightmares became a regular thing. Every night around 2 or 3 in the morning, Maya would appear at Lisa's bedside shaking and scared. Lisa never turned her away. She would make room in her bed, hold Maya close, and stay awake until her daughter's breathing became steady and peaceful. But this meant Lisa was getting only a few hours of sleep each night, and it was starting to show. At work, Lisa found herself yawning constantly and making simple mistakes. She would forget which books customers were looking for or lose track of conversations mid-sentence. Mrs. Chen noticed but didn't say anything, which made Lisa feel even more grateful for her understanding boss. Still, Lisa worried about how long she could keep this up. The breaking point came on a Thursday night 3 weeks after they had moved in. Maya had been doing better during the day, making friends at her new school and seeming happy and adjusted. Lisa had hoped this meant the nightmares would stop soon. But that night, Maya's screaming woke up not just Lisa, but probably half the building. When Lisa rushed to Maya's room, she found her daughter sitting up in bed, pointing at the corner and crying about a monster that was trying to take her away. No amount of comforting seemed to help. Maya was inconsolable, repeating over and over that she wanted to go back to their old house where she felt safe. Lisa felt her heart breaking. She had thought she was doing the right thing by leaving, creating a better life for both of them, but seeing Maya so scared and unhappy made her question everything. Was she being selfish? Had she made a terrible mistake? That's when she heard a gentle knock on the front door. The person knocking was David, their next-door neighbor. He was a teacher at the local elementary school, probably in his early 30s, with kind eyes and a patient way of speaking that reminded Lisa of her favorite teachers from when she was young. They had met briefly when Lisa was moving in, and he had offered to help carry some of the heavier boxes. He seemed genuine and trustworthy, the kind of person who would remember your name and ask how you were doing when he saw you in the hallway. David explained that he had heard crying and wanted to make sure everything was okay. He wasn't being nosy or intrusive, just concerned like a good neighbor should be. Lisa, exhausted and overwhelmed, found herself explaining the situation. She told him about the divorce, the move, and Maya's struggles with sleeping in the new place. David listened without judging or offering quick solutions that wouldn't really help. Instead, he shared a story about his own childhood, how he had trouble sleeping when his family moved to a new city when he was about Maya's age. He talked about how his older brother had helped him feel safe by creating a special bedtime routine that made their new house feel like home. As he spoke, Maya had stopped crying and was listening from the doorway of her room. David noticed her and smiled, asking if she would like to hear about some tricks that helped kids sleep better in new places. Maya nodded, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. David sat down on the living room floor and started talking to Maya about how sometimes our brains need extra time to learn that new places can be safe and comfortable. He used simple words that made sense to an 8-year-old, comparing it to how she probably felt nervous on her first day at a new school, but then made friends and started to like it. By the end of their conversation, Maya was yawning and rubbing her eyes. David suggested they try something called a safety check, where Maya could look around her room with her mom and talk about all the things that made it safe and special. They did this together, pointing out how strong the locks were on the doors, how the nightlight made soft, friendly shadows instead of scary ones, and how her favorite stuffed animal was right there to keep her company. For the first time in weeks, Maya fell asleep easily and stayed asleep through the night. Lisa sat in her living room afterward, feeling a sense of relief she hadn't experienced since before the move. But more than that, she felt grateful. David had shown up at exactly the right moment, not trying to fix everything but simply offering support when they needed it most. That night, Lisa slept better than she had in months, knowing that maybe, just maybe, they weren't as alone in this new chapter of their lives as she had thought. The peaceful nights didn't last as long as Lisa had hoped. For about a week, Maya slept through the night, and Lisa started to believe they had finally turned a corner. She began sleeping better herself, waking up feeling refreshed and ready to tackle each day with renewed energy. The dark circles under her eyes started to fade, and she even caught herself humming while making breakfast. But children's minds work in mysterious ways, and sometimes progress isn't a straight line. It happened on a rainy Tuesday night in October. The weather had been getting colder, and Lisa had spent the evening helping Maya with her math homework while a gentle rain tapped against their windows. They had their usual bedtime routine, bath time, story time, and the safety check that David had taught them. Maya seemed perfectly fine, chatting about her day at school and the new friends she had made during lunch. Around midnight, Lisa woke up to the sound of Maya crying, but this wasn't the usual scared whimpering she had gotten used to. This was different, deeper, more frightened, like something had truly terrified her daughter. Lisa jumped out of bed and rushed to Maya's room, her heart beating fast with worry. She found Maya sitting in the middle of her bed crying so hard she could barely catch her breath. Her little body was shaking and she kept looking toward the window with wide, frightened eyes. When Lisa tried to comfort her, Maya clung to her mother so tightly it almost hurt. Between sobs, Maya tried to explain what had happened. She talked about hearing voices outside her window, seeing shapes moving in the darkness and feeling like someone was watching her. The rational part of Lisa's mind knew these were likely just dream images mixing with the sounds of rain and wind. But seeing her daughter so genuinely terrified made Lisa's own anxiety spike. Lisa tried everything she could think of. She checked the window locks, showed Maya that the curtains were closed tight, and even looked outside to prove that everything was normal. She read extra stories, sang lullabies, and stayed in Maya's room for over an hour. Nothing worked. Every time Lisa tried to leave, Maya would start crying again, begging her mother not to go. By 2 a.m, both of them were exhausted and frustrated. Lisa felt helpless watching her daughter struggle with fears that seemed so real to her 8-year-old mind. She was starting to doubt her own parenting abilities again, wondering if she should call Maya's father, or maybe even consider moving back to their old neighborhood. That's when she remembered David's offer from the previous week. He had given her his phone number and told her to call if Maya ever had trouble sleeping again, no matter what time it was. Lisa had thought it was just a polite gesture, but looking at Maya's tear-stained face, she decided to take him up on his offer. David answered on the second ring, his voice alert despite the late hour. When Lisa explained what was happening, he didn't hesitate. He said he would be right over, and within 10 minutes there was a soft knock on their door. David arrived wearing a comfortable sweater and carrying a small bag. He greeted Maya with a gentle smile and asked if she wanted to tell him about what had scared her. Instead of dismissing her fears or trying to explain them away, he listened carefully to every detail, nodding seriously as if Maya was describing something very important. Then David did something unexpected. He suggested they do what he called a nighttime investigation together. He pulled a small flashlight from his bag and asked Maya if she wanted to help him check all the places that felt scary to make sure everything was safe. Together, The three of them walked around the apartment, with David pointing the flashlight into corners and behind furniture while Maya held Lisa's hand. David made it feel like an adventure rather than something frightening. He showed Maya how the heating system made gentle sounds that could seem scary in the dark, and how car headlights passing by sometimes created moving shadows on the walls. Most importantly, he helped Maya understand that feeling scared didn't mean she was in danger. He explained that our brains are designed to notice things that seem different or unusual, especially at night, because that's how humans stayed safe throughout history. But in their safe apartment with strong locks and caring neighbors nearby, those feelings were just her brain being extra careful. By the end of their investigation, Maya was yawning and leaning against Lisa's shoulder. David suggested they try something new. He would stay in the living room for the rest of the night reading one of his teaching books, just in case Maya needed anything. That way she would know someone was nearby without having to worry about bothering anyone. The plan worked perfectly. Maya fell asleep quickly, knowing that both her mother and David were just a few steps away if she needed them. Lisa, feeling more secure than she had in weeks, also slept peacefully through the rest of the night. Over the next few weeks, David's occasional overnight stays became a regular part of their routine. Not every night, but whenever Maya seemed particularly anxious or when Lisa felt overwhelmed by the challenges of single parenting. David never made it feel like an obligation or something they should be grateful for. Instead, he made it seem like spending time with them was something he genuinely enjoyed. During these visits, Lisa started to see David in a different light. She watched how patient he was with Maya, never talking down to her or dismissing her concerns. He had a natural way of explaining things that made sense to a child's mind. Probably from his years of teaching elementary school students, Maya began to look forward to his visits, often asking Lisa if Mr. David would be coming over to help with bedtime. David brought small activities that helped Maya feel more comfortable in their new home. One evening, he showed up with colored pencils and helped Maya draw pictures of all her favorite things about their apartment. They drew the purple wall in her bedroom, the big window in the living room that let in morning sunlight, and even the friendly cat that sometimes sat on their fire escape. Another night, he brought ingredients to make what he called sleepy time cookies. Simple sugar cookies that weren't meant to make anyone actually sleepy, but gave Maya something fun to focus on before bedtime. They would bake together while Lisa finished cleaning up from dinner, and the warm, sweet smell that filled their apartment made everything feel more like home. These evenings became special for all three of them. After Maya went to sleep, Lisa and David would sit in the living room talking quietly over cups of tea or coffee. David would tell stories about his students and the funny things they said in class. Lisa found herself sharing memories from Maya's earlier years, the milestones and challenges that had shaped their mother-daughter relationship. Through these conversations, Lisa learned more about David's background. He had grown up in a large family where everyone looked out for each other, which explained his natural instinct to help neighbors in need. He had been teaching for almost 10 years and loved working with children, though he had never married or had kids of his own. There was a gentleness about him that made Lisa feel safe opening up about her own struggles and fears. David never pushed for personal details about Lisa's divorce or their previous living situation. Instead, he focused on the present, asking how he could best support them as they built their new life. His approach was refreshing. He didn't try to fix everything or offer advice unless asked. He simply provided steady, reliable support that allowed both Lisa and Maya to feel more secure. As Maya's confidence grew, she started sleeping through the night more consistently. She still had occasional bad dreams, but they were less intense and easier to comfort away. More importantly, she began to see their apartment as truly home rather than just the place where they happened to live now. Lisa noticed changes in herself too. Having someone she could count on, even just knowing that David was willing to help when needed, made her feel less alone in facing the daily challenges of single parenthood. She slept better on the nights when David stayed over, not just because Maya was calm, but because she felt like she had a partner in caring for her daughter's well-being. The three of them developed small traditions that made their unusual arrangement feel natural and comfortable. David would help Maya with her homework on the evenings he visited. Using creative teaching methods that made learning fun, Maya's grades improved, and her teacher sent home notes praising her positive attitude and increased participation in class. On weekends, they sometimes took walks around the neighborhood together, with Maya skipping ahead while Lisa and David talked about everything and nothing. Other neighbors began to recognize them as a unit, and Lisa realized they looked like a family from the outside, something that both comforted and slightly worried her, as she thought about what it might mean for their future. By December, Maya was doing much better. She had been sleeping in her own room for almost 2 weeks straight. No nightmares, no middle-of-the-night visits to Lisa's bedroom. Her confidence at school was growing too. She joined the art club and even volunteered to read aloud during story time. Lisa felt proud watching her daughter blossom into this brave, happy child who was finally comfortable in their new life. David's visits had become less frequent as Maya needed less help with bedtime routines. He would still come over for dinner sometimes or help with weekend activities, but the urgent late-night calls had stopped. This should have made Lisa happy. It meant they were succeeding, becoming independent like she had always wanted. But something unexpected was happening. The more capable and independent Lisa became, the more she missed having David around. During the quiet evening hours when Maya was doing homework or playing in her room, Lisa found herself listening for his familiar knock on the door. She caught herself making dinner portions for 3 people out of habit, then feeling disappointed when she realized it would just be her and Maya eating together. At first, Lisa told herself these feelings were normal. After all, David had been incredibly helpful during one of the most challenging periods of her life. It made sense that she would miss having that extra support. She convinced herself that what she was feeling was simple gratitude. Nothing more complicated than that. But late at night, when Maya was sleeping peacefully and the apartment was quiet, Lisa had to be honest with herself. She missed David's presence in ways that had nothing to do with parenting help. She missed their quiet conversations over coffee, the way he listened to her thoughts and concerns without trying to fix everything immediately. She missed his gentle laugh and the way he made even ordinary moments feel special. The realization scared her. Lisa had worked so hard to build an independent life for herself and Maya. She didn't want to become someone who needed a man to feel complete or secure. But these feelings weren't about need. They were about want, about connection, about the simple human desire to share life's moments with someone who truly understood and cared. One Thursday evening in mid-December, after Maya had gone to bed without any trouble, Lisa found herself unable to sleep. She kept thinking about David, wondering what he was doing in his apartment next door, whether he ever thought about them during his quiet evenings alone. The more she tried to push these thoughts away, the stronger they became. Around 11:30, she heard the familiar sound of David's television through the thin walls. He was probably grading papers or preparing lessons for the next day, something he often did late in the evening. Lisa knew this because during his stays she had noticed his schedule and the dedicated way he approached his teaching responsibilities. Before she could talk herself out of it, Lisa slipped on her robe and quietly opened her front door. The hallway was dimly lit by the emergency lighting, and she could see a soft glow coming from under David's door. She stood there for a moment, wondering if she was making a mistake, if she was about to complicate the simple, helpful friendship they had built. But her heart was beating fast with something that felt bigger than friendship, and she found herself knocking gently on his door before she could change her mind. David opened the door quickly, immediately looking concerned. He was wearing comfortable clothes and had papers spread across his coffee table, just as Lisa had imagined. When he saw that she wasn't upset or dealing with an emergency, his expression changed to gentle curiosity. Lisa stood in his doorway, suddenly feeling uncertain about what to say. How do you tell someone that you've realized you care about them more than you expected? How do you admit that you miss them even when there's no practical reason for them to be there? David seemed to sense her struggle. He stepped aside and quietly invited her in, offering her a seat on his couch. His apartment was similar to hers but felt different, warmer somehow, filled with books and plants and the kind of personal touches that made a place feel like home. They sat together in comfortable silence for a few minutes. David didn't push her to explain why she had come over so late. Instead, he simply waited, giving her space to find the words she needed. Finally, Lisa found the courage to speak. She told him about the sleepless nights that had nothing to do with Maya's nightmares. She explained how quiet her apartment felt when he wasn't there, how she had started to miss his presence in ways that surprised her. She admitted that somewhere along the way, her gratitude for his help had grown into something deeper, real affection, genuine care, and the kind of connection she hadn't felt in years. David listened without interrupting, his expression growing softer as Lisa spoke. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Then he told her something that made her heart skip. He had been feeling the same way. He had started looking forward to their evenings together, not because Maya needed help, but because he genuinely enjoyed spending time with both of them. He had found himself thinking about them during his school days, wondering how Maya's art project was going or whether Lisa had enjoyed the book he had recommended. The conversation that followed was gentle and honest. They talked about their growing feelings, but also about the important considerations that came with any relationship involving a child. They both agreed that Maya's well-being and security had to be their first priority in any decision they made. About their future, David admitted that he had been holding back his own feelings because he didn't want Lisa to think he had helped them with ulterior motives. His support during those difficult early months had been genuine, offered freely without expecting anything in return. But somewhere along the way, helping them had become caring about them, and caring had grown into something much deeper. They decided that night to take things slowly, to let their relationship develop naturally, while making sure Maya felt secure and included in any changes. They agreed to be open and honest with each other about their feelings while maintaining the stability and routine that had helped Maya thrive. The transition from friendship to something deeper happened gradually over the next several months. David continued coming over for dinner and weekend activities, but now these visits had a different quality. They were spending time together because they wanted to, not because of any crisis or immediate need. Maya seemed to sense the change in the adults around her, but in a positive way. She noticed that her mother smiled more often, and that David seemed more relaxed during their time together. The three of them began taking weekend trips to nearby parks, museums, and local festivals. Maya loved having two adults focused on making her life fun and interesting, and she began referring to David as part of their family in casual conversations with school friends. Lisa and David were careful to maintain appropriate boundaries while their relationship evolved. David continued sleeping on the couch during his overnight visits, and they made sure Maya understood that these changes were happening slowly, with her comfort and happiness being the most important consideration. By spring, their relationship had naturally evolved into a committed partnership. David officially moved in during Maya's Easter break from school, making the transition feel like a celebration rather than a disruption. Maya helped him arrange his books on their shelves and choose which wall would be best for his framed pictures of students from previous years. The apartment that had once felt too small for Lisa and Maya now felt perfectly sized for their family of three. David's teaching salary combined with Lisa's bookstore income gave them financial security they hadn't had before. More importantly, Maya had two adults who were completely committed to her well-being and happiness. Maya's progress over the year was remarkable. The anxious child who had once been afraid to sleep in her own room now confidently invited school friends over for playdates. Her grades improved consistently, and her teacher commented on how much more confident and social she had become. The nightmares that had once terrorized her were now a distant memory, replaced by peaceful sleep and dreams about art projects and weekend adventures. Lisa found the partnership she hadn't known she was looking for. David supported her goals and dreams while contributing his own strengths to their family life. They made decisions together about everything from Maya's activities to their household budget, but never lost sight of the individual independence that was important to both of them. David discovered that being a stepfather came naturally to him. His teaching experience helped, but more than that, his genuine care for Maya made the role feel authentic rather than forced. He attended school events, helped with homework, and became the person Maya turned to for advice about everything from friendship problems to creative projects. One evening in late summer, almost a year after that first night when David had helped Maya feel safe, the three of them sat on their small balcony watching the sunset. Maya was showing David a drawing she had made of their family, 3 figures holding hands in front of their apartment building, all of them smiling. Lisa looked at this picture and realized how far they had all come. What had started as a crisis, a single mother struggling to help her frightened child, had become the foundation for something beautiful and lasting. Maya had learned that asking for help when you need it isn't weakness but wisdom. Lisa had discovered that independence doesn't mean facing everything alone. And David had found the family he had always hoped for, but never expected to discover right next door. Their story wasn't dramatic or complicated. It was simply about three people who found each other during a difficult time and chose to build something wonderful together. Sometimes the best things in life grow quietly, naturally, from moments of vulnerability and the willingness to care for others without expecting anything in return. In their small apartment with the purple wall and the morning sunlight, they had created exactly the kind of home they had all been looking for.